The relationship Virat Kohli has with the ODI format is something we should all long for. Now, there's always an argument about who the best ODI batter is, but according to us, the ODI format is the best format for Virat Kohli. And before we talk about how Virat Kohli is done in the ODI format and why we think it's his best format, hit that subscribe button. Now, in the second match in the Champions Trophy, Virat Kohli got his 51st ODI 100, crossed 14,000 ODI runs, fastest man ever to cross 14,000 runs, with an impressive average of 58. Now, to give you a little perspective on how impressive his average is, in the top 10 highest scorers in the ODI format ever in cricketing history, he's the only batter to have an average of 50 plus, and his average is 58. Now, we all know how he's made the number 3 position in the batting order in the Indian team his own. Since 2008, he's had an average of 61. The only other batter in the top 10 list to have an average of 60 is Babar Azam, and he has less than half of the runs that Virat Kohli has had. Now, there are a lot of reasons why Virat Kohli does so well in the ODI format, and the number one reason is his ability to rotate strike. Now, as a batter, you would want to make sure that you're ticking the scoreboard not just with boundaries but also with singles and doubles. And as a bowler, you wouldn't want the batter to be able to take those singles and doubles, especially on your best balls, and this is exactly what Virat Kohli is so good at. His ability to rotate strike even against the best balls bowled by the bowler is what sets him apart. Now, when you look at Virat Kohli's dot ball percentage in the ODI format, he has an overall dot ball percentage of 45%, which is the second best in the top 10 highest scorers list. If you compare him to all the other number 3 batters in the world, he has an overall dot ball percentage of 44%, again the second best in the list. Now, we know Virat Kohli for a lot of reasons, right? The fact is that he can bat for long, bat the entire 50 overs. So let's look at his dot ball percentage breaking down the ODI format. Between the overs 0 to 10, he has a dot ball percentage of 64%, again the second best on the list. Between the overs 10 and 30, he has a dot ball percentage of 43, and between the overs 30 to 50, he has a dot ball percentage of 33%. This is not only the lowest in terms of dot ball percentage on the list, he's the only number 3 batter to be able to bat between the overs 30 to 50 with a strike rate of 120. Now, this says a lot about Virat Kohli the batter and how he is able to accumulate those runs and have a certain template while going through the process in an ODI format. Now, something that is very, very important in an ODI format that sets Virat Kohli apart from the rest is his ability to play spin and pace. And yes, his ability to spin has diminished, and we have made an entire video on this couple of months ago which is still relevant today, and if you haven't checked that out, go check that out. But overall, when you look at his career, his averages against spin and pace are very, very impressive. He has an average of mid 40s between spin and pace, and even in Sena countries against the fast bowlers, he averages around 40. And these are numbers that stand out, especially as a number 3 batter, because in an ODI format and as a number 3 batter, it's almost the most difficult place to bat because you can either walk in the first 10 overs or walk in after a great partnership, and you will have to, from ball 1, continue the momentum. And this is where we come to situational awareness. Now, there is no stat to measure situational awareness, but because of the amount of runs and the way Virat Kohli gets those runs and the way it has an impact on the match, we can clearly say that he has a very high situational awareness and he knows exactly what to do in a certain given match. Now, let's take 2 examples, right? 2 very famous examples of 2 centuries that led Virat Kohli and led the Indian team to victory. The first example is a century against South Africa in 2018 when he scored 160 of 159 balls. Not the quickest of century, in fact it is one of his slowest centuries, but this is exactly what was needed in the situation given. India were put into bat, Rohit Sharma gets duck out after facing 6 deliveries, and Shikhar Dhawan and Virat Kohli pinch on a long partnership. Now, the problems began after the 30th over when it became a lot more difficult to bat and Virat Kohli had to take his time. Even though Virat Kohli scored those 160 runs, India only had a target of 303 by the end of 50 overs, with Virat Kohli staying 160 not out. And of course, those runs were very, very crucial because India finally went on to win by 124 runs. Now, the second example is of Virat Kohli being the chase master that he is. This is a very famous 100 in Jaipur against Australia in 2013, where Australia batted first, scored 359 by the end of the 50 overs. When Virat Kohli came into bat, they needed 183 runs in about 24 overs with a required run rate of 7 7.6. Not the highest required run rate, but it still needed a quick innings, and we got Virat Kohli scoring at a strike rate of 192 and getting a century. And this is exactly what I'm talking about in terms of Virat Kohli and his situational awareness, and this comes because of his ability to play spin and pace, like I said. And this is exactly his template, right? If he comes in between the 0 to 10 overs, he will make sure he negates the new ball, takes his time, even with the strike rate of 74, and will wait until the field is spread. Now, you might just think Virat Kohli's strike rate might just come down after the 10th over because the field has spread, but this is not true at all. His strike rate goes up to 87 between the overs 10 and 30, which is insane when you think about it. And this isn't necessarily because of his boundaries, but like I said, because of his ability to rotate strike. Now, in his prime, when the spinners came on in the middle overs, Virat Kohli was able to use the crease, not just the depth of the crease, but the width of the crease. And he was able to maneuver the ball wherever he wanted to, especially because of those magical wrists that he had. He could flick the ball through mid-wicket and he could play the cover drive to a spinner to the same ball. And this is what made Virat Kohli so much more different and so much more dangerous against spinners. Now, like I said, his game against spinners has diminished. And before he had a lot more shots against the spinners. And now he's cut down on a lot of shots and brought out the sweep shot, which isn't the most effective for him. But if he can continue to do what he did against Pakistan in the second Champions Trophy game for India and play out the spinners by taking singles and not taking a lot of risks against them if the situation doesn't need him to, this will only allow him to continue to play those long innings that we are so used to seeing. Now listen, when we talk about Virat Kohli, we have to talk about the chase master that he is. Now of course, his numbers while chasing are staggering, but him batting first is also very, very impressive. Since 2008, he scored the highest amount of runs batting first with an average of 51, which in itself is impressive. But then when you come to chases, him batting second since 2008 has an average of 64. Now, to give you a little perspective, the second person on this list is Rohit Sharma, who's just above 6,000 runs, who has an average of 50, whereas Virat Kohli is closing in on 8,000 runs with an average of 64. Now, we all know how Virat Kohli has 51 ODI hundreds. 84% of these hundreds have come when India has won a match. Now, while batting first, 82% of all the hundreds that he scored batting first is when India has won a match. But while batting second, that number goes up to 85% of the hundreds he scored while batting second have come in a victory. Now, there's always this question of why Virat Kohli does so much better while chasing. And he's talked about this in multiple interviews and multiple press conferences of how he's able to break down the target, how he's able to break down his own innings and decide when to attack a bowler and when not to. Now, when you sit back and do the simple math of how to go about chasing the target, it comes out very easy. But when you're batting in the middle, in the stadium, in an international match against an international opposition, there's a lot more at play. And Virat Kohli is able to do that. He's able to soak in that pressure. He's able to do all the calculations that he has to reach that target. And this is also shown in his numbers, right? 72% of the time when Virat Kohli scored 50 plus while batting second, India has won. Now, this number comes down to 67% when he bats first and scores 50 plus runs when India has won a match. Now, the final question is, why is he so good at ODIs as compared to T20 and the Test format? Now, don't get me wrong, he's one of the best T20 batters India has ever had, and he's right up there in terms of test numbers as well. But the ODI format just lets him play his natural game. He doesn't need to attack from ball one unlike the T20 format, nor does he need to be very, very defensive like the test match. He can play out the situation in a 50-over match, have his own template, break his own innings down, depending on the target or depending on the environment while batting first. He doesn't need to be overly defensive unless the situation needs him to be, so he can play his natural game. We all know Virat Kohli is a natural attacking player, nor does he need to be excessively attacking like the T20 format unless he's batting in the last 10 overs. By then you already know he's settled and he doesn't need to play the anchor role that he does in the T20 format. Now, this is the beauty of the ODI format. You have a player like Virat Kohli transcend his own style of play from ball 1 to the 50th over, and you see every side of the batter that you need to see, especially for a batter like Virat Kohli. Now, yes, there are a couple more matches to go before the Champions Trophy ends, and we don't know the fate of Virat Kohli's ODI career or if he is going to retire or not by the end of this tournament. But regardless of how he does in the next few matches or in the next whatever matches that he chooses to play, he will be one of the best ODI batters the game has ever seen, and the ODI format and his relationship will continue forever and ever. This has been a video on why we think the ODI format is best suited for Virat Kohli, and if he can continue this form, the numbers will only increase. Like, share, and subscribe, all that good stuff. We put out videos every Tuesdays and Fridays. If you haven't followed us on our socials, please go down to our description and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to our newsletter if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.